On a quiet Sunday morning in early December 1941, the United States awoke to what seemed like another ordinary day. Streets were calm, families went about their routines, and the Pacific waters shimmered in the early light. Yet, far from the tranquility, forces were moving with precision and purpose, forces that would soon alter the course of history. Tensions with Japan had been simmering for years. Trade embargoes, territorial disputes, and military confrontations in Asia had placed the two nations on a collision course. But for most Americans, these issues felt distant, almost abstract. The idea that an enemy fleet could strike at the very heart of the U.S. Pacific Fleet seemed unimaginable. Intelligence officers, working tirelessly behind the scenes, had intercepted fragments of Japanese communications. At first, these messages seemed routine. Troop movements, logistically reports, coded signals that hinted at activity, but lacked clarity. Analysts spent long hours attempting to piece together the puzzle, scrutinizing every telegram, every radio transmission, and every intercepted code. The clues were there, yet they appeared innocuous, scattered, almost impossible to interpret in time. In Washington, analysts debated the likelihood of an attack. Some suggested a minor skirmish or a show of naval strength. Others feared a more ambitious operation, yet lacked evidence to act decisively. In Pearl Harbor, officers conducted routine drills, unaware that the Japanese Navy was already moving into striking position. The tension was invisible, buried under layers of bureaucracy, normalcy, and disbelief. Even the most experienced intelligence personnel felt the uncertainty. How could they distinguish between harmless signals and a plan of unprecedented audacity? The answer would only become clear in a matter of hours. And so, as the sun rose over Hawaii, the United States stood on the edge of catastrophe, unaware that the calm morning would soon be shattered forever. Throughout the 1930s, Japan had been steadily expanding its influence across East Asia. Driven by a combination of resource scarcity, national ambition, and military ideology, Japanese forces moved deeper into China, capturing key territories and exerting their dominance with brutal efficiency. These moves alarmed the United States, which viewed Japan's expansion as a threat to long-term stability in the Pacific region. In response, the United States imposed economic sanctions, restricted vital materials, and tightened its grip on trade. To Japan, these actions felt like an attempt to suffocate its growing empire. The Japanese leadership believed that unless they acted quickly and decisively, their expansionist vision would crumble under American pressure. The stakes were rising, and both nations could feel the weight of impending conflict. American intelligence, meanwhile, worked around the clock to decode Japanese communications. Analysts sifted through thousands of intercepted messages, searching for patterns that could reveal Japan's next move. Sometimes these efforts yielded crucial information. Other times, they produced more questions than answers. The signals were scrambled, the intentions unclear, and the clock was ticking. Warnings began to flow toward the Pentagon and naval headquarters in Hawaii. Certain analysts raised concerns that Japan might strike American interests somewhere in the Pacific. But where? The Philippines? Guam? British territories? Or perhaps even American forces in Hawaii? To many, the idea seemed far-fetched. The distance was vast, and the Japanese fleet was believed to be incapable of such a daring attack. Still, doubts lingered in the minds of those trained to expect the unexpected. Yet without concrete evidence, decision-makers hesitated. They hesitated at the very moment when hesitation would prove costly. And as the days passed, the Japanese Navy continued its silent approach toward a target that no one truly believed they would dare to strike: Pearl Harbor. December 7th, 1941, began like any other Sunday in the Hawaiian Islands. The sun rose over calm waters, casting warm light on battleships anchored peacefully in the harbor. Sailors prepared for a relaxed day, some eating breakfast on deck, others preparing for shore leave, and many simply enjoying the comfort of an unremarkable morning. Across the island, families dressed for church, unaware that history was already shifting beneath their feet. At the same time, American radio stations and intelligence outposts picked up unusual transmissions. Codebreakers working through the night noticed strange patterns in Japanese communications. Certain units had gone silent. Others were sending messages encrypted with rare or urgent classifications. Something was happening, but the meaning was unclear. Military officers at Pearl Harbor reviewed routine intelligence reports. Patrols were operating on limited schedules. Aircraft were lined up wing to wing on the airfields for easy guarding, and the Pacific Fleet remained anchored in predictable positions. Several officers felt a faint uneasiness, a sense that something was not quite right. Yet higher command had issued no alerts, and the standing assumption was that Japan would never risk a direct confrontation with the United States. Across desks, filing rooms, and communications hubs, the scattered clues existed. Analysts in Washington debated faint signals. Officers in Hawaii dismissed certain reports as overreactions. No single piece of information pointed definitively toward a massive attack. But together, the clues formed a picture that no one recognized until it was too late. And so, as the morning unfolded peacefully with soldiers relaxing and aircraft sitting idle in the warm breeze, the greatest threat ever seen in the Pacific quietly approached. The stage was set, and the calm of the morning masked a storm that was seconds away from erupting. At 7:55 a.m., the sky over Pearl Harbor erupted into chaos. Out of the clouds descended dozens of Japanese aircraft, fighters, torpedo planes, and bombers, unleashing a furious, coordinated assault. Within seconds, the tranquility of the morning was shattered by explosions, alarms, and the deafening roar of engines diving toward their targets. The first wave struck with devastating precision. Torpedoes slammed into battleships anchored along Battleship Row. Bombs fell onto airfields, igniting fuel tanks and destroying aircraft before they could even take off. Fire and smoke filled the harbor, turning the once calm waters into a battleground of destruction. Sailors ran toward their stations, many still half-dressed, desperately attempting to return fire. Some ships attempted to get underway, but the attack was too swift, too overwhelming. The USS Oklahoma rolled over after taking multiple torpedo hits. The USS West Virginia and USS California were struck repeatedly, and then the USS Arizona suffered a catastrophic explosion, a blast so powerful that it stunned the entire harbor. More than 1,000 men were lost in seconds. For American intelligence officers, the shock was indescribable. Messages poured across every available channel. Reports of enemy aircraft, urgent pleas for assistance, and desperate attempts to coordinate a response. Within minutes, it became brutally clear that the fragmented warnings, the intercepted codes, the uneasy signs, all of it had pointed to this moment. But recognition came far too late. The attack continued for nearly 2 hours, leaving destruction in its wake. By the time the final Japanese planes withdrew, Pearl Harbor was engulfed in smoke. Oil fires burned across the water, and countless American lives had been lost. The United States had been caught completely off guard, and the consequences would echo through history. The aftermath of the attack revealed a scene of devastation unlike anything witnessed on American soil. Sailors struggled to rescue trapped crewmates from sinking ships. Oil fires raged across the water, creating thick, black smoke that choked the air. The sound of collapsing metal, explosions, and cries for help echoed through the harbor. At the USS Arizona Memorial Site, the water boiled with the flames of burning fuel. The loss of life was staggering. Nearly 1,200 men perished aboard the Arizona alone. Other ships suffered heavy casualties as well. Medics, overwhelmed and desperate, worked tirelessly to treat the wounded, using whatever supplies they could salvage from the chaos. Across the island, civilians rushed to offer aid. Hospitals filled within minutes. Blood donation lines formed instantly. Ordinary citizens became emergency responders, lifting debris, carrying the wounded, and providing comfort to those who had lost everything in the blink of an eye. For American intelligence officers, the emotional toll was immense. They knew that warning signs had existed, signals scattered through intercepted messages, hints buried in coded traffic, subtle shifts detected too late. As they revered the unfolding catastrophe, they faced the harsh reality that the attack could not be undone. The consequences of misjudgment, uncertainty, and hesitation were now painfully clear. December 7th was more than a military defeat. It was a national tragedy. The human cost etched itself into the hearts of every American who witnessed or learned about the attack. And the memory of those lost would forever shape the nation's determination to prevent such disaster from happening again. When the smoke finally began to clear, the true scale of the devastation became undeniable. The Pacific Fleet was crippled. Battleships lay capsized or burned beyond recognition. Countless aircraft were destroyed on the ground. And above all, more than 2,400 Americans were dead, with thousands more injured. In the hours and days that followed, military and intelligence officials worked feverishly to understand how the attack had been allowed to happen. They reviewed intercepted messages, decoded communications, and internal reports. Slowly, a painful picture emerged, one showing that Japan's intentions had not been invisible, but rather hidden behind layers of misinterpretation. New protocols were immediately drafted to strengthen communication between intelligence agencies. The code-breaking program known as MAGIC was expanded and reorganized. The United States began to prioritize rapid information sharing, tighter coordination, and improved readiness across the Pacific. The lessons of Pearl Harbor drove a complete reinvention of American intelligence. The attack also united the American public. Shock turned into anger, anger transformed into resolve. Lines formed at recruitment stations as citizens volunteered to defend their country. Factories prepared for a wartime economy. The United States, once hesitant to enter global conflict, now faced war with a sense of purpose and unity that would define the coming years. Pearl Harbor was a turning point, one that reshaped military strategy, intelligence operations, and the nation's identity. The aftermath marked the beginning of a long and difficult path toward victory. December 7th, 1941 remains one of the most defining moments in American history. It stands not only as the day the nation was attacked, but as the day American intelligence realized the high cost of misreading danger. Even with advanced code-breaking and expert analysts, the absence of unified interpretation proved devastating. In the months and years that followed, the United States embraced the hard lessons learned from Pearl Harbor. Intelligence agencies improved coordination. Military commanders developed new strategies for rapid response. Cryptographers pushed their craft to new heights, producing breakthroughs that would shape the outcome of the war. The tragedy forced the United States to evolve, faster, smarter, and stronger than ever before. Yet, beyond the strategic changes, Pearl Harbor became a symbol of resilience. The nation refused to crumble under fear or sorrow. Instead, it mobilized, adapted, and eventually triumphed. Every life lost that morning became a reason to fight, a reason to persevere, and a reason to ensure such a failure would never happen again. Today, the memory of Pearl Harbor serves as a powerful reminder. Vigilance is essential. Information must be understood, not ignored. Warnings must lead to action, not hesitation. And peace, no matter how calm it may appear, must always be protected. the lessons of that day remain as relevant now as they were in 1941. December 7th will always stand as a reminder of the price of complacency and the unbreakable spirit of a nation that rose from tragedy to face the greatest challenge in its history.